The defense in the trial of Jeremy Skibicki is arguing he should be found not criminally responsible in a Winnipeg courtroom this week. Skibicki is charged in the 2022 deaths of 3 First Nations women: Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, as well as the death of an unidentified woman given the name Mashkade Bishike Ekwe Iban by community leaders. So, what does not criminally responsible mean? And what consequences can it have for the person accused? Let's start with the definition in Canada's Criminal Code, which says, a person cannot be found criminally responsible for an act committed or an omission made while suffering from a mental disorder that rendered the person incapable of appreciating the nature and quality of the act or omission, or of knowing it was wrong. CBC talked to Brandon Trask, who's an assistant professor of law at the University of Manitoba. He said there are 2 things you need to prove in a not criminally responsible case. One is that the accused had a mental disorder at the time of the offense, and the second is that they have to prove that that mental disorder made them either unable to understand what they were doing or that it was wrong. Here's how he put it.
If somebody's experiencing delusions, specifically in the context of more of a paranoid schizophrenia, for instance, that individual may have an easier time making the case that they should be found NCR because, what they were doing was essentially not their own choice. They felt that they had to act in a certain way because they were receiving instructions to do so.
So what's an example of a case where not criminally responsible was successfully argued by a defense team? In a case that is seared in the minds of many Manitobans, Vince Lee was found not criminally responsible in the killing of Timothy McLean. McLean was beheaded in an unprovoked attack on a Greyhound bus near Portage la Prairie, Manitoba in July 2008. Psychiatric evidence at Lee's trial showed he's schizophrenic and suffered a major psychotic episode when he fatally stabbed McLean. Lee spent years in different psychiatric clinics and supervised homes before getting a discharge. Trask says after someone is found not criminally responsible, it can play out in a few different ways.
If there is a finding of NCR in Canada, essentially the court, reaches a determination that yes, this individual is NCR. That individual will then appear in front of the Criminal Code Review Board. So every province has a review board, and people who are found NCR, and also those who are found unfit to stand trial, end up under the purview of the review board. And so the review board will have hearings on at least an annual basis with respect to every person who's been found NCR.
How likely is it then that Skibicki could be found not criminally responsible? A forensic psychiatrist I spoke with shed some light on that. Dr. John Bradford has assessed a number of high-profile Canadian killers like Paul Bernardo, Russell Williams, and Robert Pickton for not criminally responsible. Here's what he said about those cases.
It would be very unusual for any type of serial sexual homicide perpetrator to be found not criminally responsible on the basis of mental disorder.
What he says next about the reason why could be the clincher in Skibicki's case, given that the Crown is arguing the killings involved a high level of planning.
But they involve a lot of planning and organization. They have to find a victim, they have to persuade them and abduct them, and they have to go to various means to do that. And then usually afterwards there's some disposition of the body in a way to avoid to avoid being arrested or being found guilty. So in those general terms, if you stay within those parameters, it would be very unusual for somebody to be found not criminally responsible.
Time will tell whether the not criminally responsible argument in this case will be successful. Once the trial wraps up, the judge will rule on it.